During the month of Ramadan, as you were very well here on Islam Channel, you will see a number of charities doing their appeals for their respective causes. And of course, we hope that once again, you're going to donate to these important issues.
Yes, and whilst all the charities appearing on Islam Channel follow the guidelines set out by the UK's Charity Commission, you may come across some organisations who fail to comply with these regulations. So what does this mean for us, the donors? Well, here to shed some light on this, we're joined by Nick Donaldson from the UK Charity Commission. Good evening, Nick.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you very much for joining us.
If we can start with some figures, maybe. In terms of how much money actually doesn't reach the poor and goes elsewhere, what are we looking at?
Well, it's not possible to say exactly how much money doesn't make it when given to charities, how much money ultimately doesn't get to the charitable appeals. But what we do know is that at times like Ramadan, where there are very significant amounts of charitable giving, that it's more likely that people will abuse the fact that people are so generous and obtain money and ultimately not give it to the charitable causes which need it.
If I can maybe take one step back and just look at the Charity Commission itself. Are you a government body? Are you an independent body? Are you independent of government intervention? And how are you set up and what is your essential remit?
We are a government body, but we do not have a minister. Our focus really is to regulate and register charities, and I'd say we have three primary roles within that. The first is to register charities, make sure they get a registered number, put them on the register, that kind of thing. The second part is to provide advice and guidance to charities, which we do, and the third part is to investigate where there are serious allegations of misconduct or mismanagement in charities.
Now, as you said, across the world, lots of needy causes out there, and many charities will be appealing during Ramadan to help these people. What are your top tips for viewers who are watching in terms of when it comes to giving? What should they be looking out for?
Well, the first thing I want to say is that people should absolutely keep giving. It's so important. There's so much generosity at Ramadan and so much fantastic work gets done on the back of the charitable giving that goes on. What we're asking people to do is just make a few simple checks to ensure that the charities they give to are legitimate. The first thing you can do is check that it is a registered charity. It should have a registered charity number, and you can input that on our website at charitycommission.gov.uk under Find Charities and find out more information, check that it's legitimate.
So, sorry, in searching for that, you would just put in the name of the charity and hopefully then the charity number would come up?
Well, if you speak to a fundraiser, they should certainly have a name and registered number.
Yes. On
our website, you can put in either the name or the registered number and the information will come up.
Okay.
There are other things you can do. Not everybody knows this, but if, for example, you meet a fundraiser in a public place, for example, in the street, they should have a licence from the local authority or in London for the Metropolitan Police, and you should ask to see that. You should also speak to them. You know, legitimate fundraisers should be able to explain to you exactly how your money will be used.
So, anybody who's collecting, so that's people, is that people in public places or is that at all events?
I think
that's
at all events, yeah.
So people should have a licence from the local authority if they're collecting money within that local authority or if it's in London, within London?
Sorry, if they're in a public place, they should have a licence from a local authority. But if you're speaking to them at an event, for example, on private property, maybe at a mosque or something like that, you should still feel confident to ask questions to ensure that they're legitimate.
Yes, absolutely.
And in terms of the charities themselves and what they do, is there a way for people who are wanting to donate to find out more about the charities through your website?
Well, you'll certainly find information about the charities' website through our website. They should
so things
list
like
out
accounts and things like that would be...
Also, there's details about their website where you can find out information about the projects they've done, and we'd really encourage people to do that to make sure they know what the charity's doing, the charity's explaining itself. But I think also, yes, you can find out information in the charity's accounts on our website, and that's a huge resource. And the other thing we'd say just about accounts is we would encourage people to give to charities that have submitted their accounts on time. It can indicate that they're not perhaps being run properly if they haven't done that.
And I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the accounts on the Charities Commission website, it will show things like how much of their collected money is actually going to donors and how much is being spent on things like advertising, administration and things like that, won't it?
It will say that. It should, and it breaks it down actually on our website. It gives helpful little charts which show what proportion of income is going actually on charitable activity. The one thing we would just say about that, though, is that some charities require to spend a bit more on fundraising and administrative costs, and that's a legitimate part of their charitable work. People shouldn't just think, because because they spend money on administration that they're not acting properly, because
Yes.
they may well be. They just need to make sure that it's an appropriate amount of their funds that they're spending on that.
In terms of the actual causes that people are raising money for, how much does the Charity Commission actually know about that? I mean, you know, okay, they collected their money and they've spent an appropriate amount on administration, on salaries, and they've submitted their accounts on time. But in terms of delivery, are you involved in that at all and seeing where that money's delivered?
Yes, and for example, I've been working, we've run a number of events recently, including events for charities working in Syria, where we've been hearing firsthand about how charities have been operating in those areas.
Yeah.
That's been really helpful to find out about the practical things people are actually doing on the ground. Charities are required to report serious incidents to us, so if something goes significantly wrong, then they're required to ensure that we get that information back, and then we can ask them questions about it and ensure that they have taken appropriate steps to prevent it happening again.
Excellent. Nick, thank you very much for joining us. Do stay with us. I hope you can for the rest of the show.